This episode of Advanced Pretend, listeners, it's another guest that I don't know, but another nice human in the world that answered a Facebook Messenger message. And his name is Grant Gosch, and he is a creative professional and a writer of modern romance novels, which I have bought and am reading right now. His first, his second, as he states in the interview, second novel of all time, but this one published, and the title is Kingfisher Lane. And this is based on a fictional location called Alder Island that plays another role in his life. He has an Instagram account that's very entertaining because every Wednesday night, right now, this is his schedule, he'll get on Instagram in the evening for about a half an hour and do a live performance from his cabin in the woods in the fictionalized location of Alder Island. And he's got a guitar and he does his little dispatches, and it's really, really fun. And that's kind of how I found him. I think it was 2021 when I stumbled across his feed. So that's how I came across Grant. And what I really enjoyed about this conversation is just his kind of, it's easy to see there's a truth to Grant in being himself. You know, like he loved to sing as a kid and make up songs. Every Wednesday night on Instagram, he's singing and he's making up songs. So, but I mean, he's also lent his kind of curiosity to the nature in which he even went to college, which he seemed to linger on campus for an extra long time when they were like, here's a degree we made up for you because you won't go away. And that was just based on his endless sense of curiosity. So I really enjoyed it. What's your take?
Yeah, it's cool because he has a creative, career. It's more in a corporate setting, but then he also has this immense sort of creative career that's not in the corporate world, that he's doing for himself and for his Instagram followers or for the people who buy his books. And so it's cool to see that he's expressing sort of his creativity both in a very structured way and then in the way that he just wants to.
Right. And I really, I think that's kind of embodies a lot of people out there who feel I want to do something on the side with my time, but I have this 9 to 5 and I'm so tired and I know what can I do? But he is another great example of someone who is pulling off kind of a balance where I can be creative in my job and there are certain parameters surrounding that. And I'm doing the best I can to collaborate with my clients and bring their vision to life. And on the other side, I just published this novel and I'm going to do a series, of novels based in Alder Island, and to have a little bit of a plan around that and really, but still doing it just because he can't help himself and really wanted to. Yeah. And I love how he talked about in Kingfisher Lane that nature is the third most important character outside of the couple that he's describing, who are in love and separated and their journey to find one another again. So but it takes place in the Pacific Northwest, and that's a piece of me is up there, and my heart belongs to Snohomish County, but and Whatcom County. Oops, don't want to leave those guys out. But anyway, So it was really fun. And
that was great, and definitely check out his Instagram. It's at Grant Gosch. It's very cool. It's artsy. It's creative, it's crafty, it's kind of got everything on it. It's really good.
Right. And he describes himself as a romantic, and that's also reflected on his feed. I mean, he's got this novel out there, and it is a modern romance, ladies and gents. I don't all genders. Open these pages, and you're gonna feel a little bit of some heat. Could use a little heat nowadays, right? Nothing wrong with that. So enjoy. So Grant Gosch, welcome to Advanced Pretend. And for the audience's benefit, we must tell them that you are a writer.
Yes.
And a creative professional.
Yes.
Right. And I usually like to start the episode with telling the audience how I know a person. And our story is very long, and it is that we don't know each other at all. The end.
This is exciting. We get to share our developing relationship with the world.
That's right. Here we go. So at any rate, I do want to say that I did stumble across Grant's Instagram feed, I don't know, 2 years ago, maybe. And at the time, I don't even know how thank you, algorithm, for doing something right for a change.
Right.
So I was really entertained by your dispatches from the cabin.
Oh, good.
The Alder Island kind of fictional community, the platform you kind of base your storytelling off of, which is very entertaining to me. And, living in a town of 10,000 people and how you talk about the post office and the messages that need to be spread so people can help each other in some way. It just reminds me of the Teton Valley Facebook community feed, which is hilarious.
Right.
And we literally have a weekly newspaper that has a sheriff's blotter.
Amazing.
Like, you don't get that all the time. And that is some rich stuff, Grant. Right?
And it's such a relief, I imagine, to just have some news that you can actually participate in and you can be a solution for, instead of this, being inundated with global tragedy. And it's nice to have something that is near to home that you can actually affect.
Yeah, the tragedy I see on the community Facebook page for this place is like, your loose dog killed my chickens again. And
right.
It is tragic,
right.
but you know what? I'll take it. Like,
yeah.
I'm sorry, family. This is so much better than what I could see in global news.
I know. And at least also, when you see that dog, you could guide it back to its owner, which is something that you can't do when you hear about national or international tragic news.
There is literally zero you can do about it.
Right.
So. At any rate, okay, so when we first started Advanced Pretend, I tried to reach out to Grant because he just released a book in 2022, and I not really turned on to the modern romance genre. But I have been reading Grant's book, and what I know about his writing now is that you celebrate nature very poetically in your writing.
Thank you.
And then you pack in a great love story. So it's like, I want to read a quote from your book, if you just give me a little bit of time here.
Sure.
And just because, Grant also, he'll read poetry on his little Wednesday evening dispatch now from Instagram. So look up Grant on Instagram, participate in that, please. Because he does read poetry, and also something that I feel very much a kinship with is your love of Mary Oliver.
Yeah, she's incredible. My favorite poet.
Right. So from Kingfisher Lane by Grant Gosch, the snag floated into my cove during the last king tide, then settled itself on the beach in front of my cabin. A migratory piece of wood finding rest until the next full moon unroots it and sends it farther down the sailless sea. Oh my God, I should have practiced.
The sailless sheet.
Sailless.
That works.
Sailless sea. Wow, I picked a hard one. But yeah, I mean, the painting of the picture where I just completely embody this character and feel myself staring out into nature, and you notice things when you're always looking at the same view. And surrounding this description, he's embracing the view of a kingfisher who's hunting, and it's kind of symbolic of who this person is. And so, can you please kind of unpack what nature has meant to you as a human in this world and from childhood, please?
Sure. Well, I grew up in Eugene, Oregon, and which is just maybe an hour and 10 minutes south of Portland. And my mom was a big nature lover and introduced me to the wonder of being outside and observing. And I feel very connected to the Northwest, having lived there for a long time. And I also lived in Asheville in North Carolina, which is beautiful.
Oh, I've been there. What a lovely community.
Yeah, it's gorgeous and it's beautiful in a different way. And it's a place I'd like to write about at some point. But I think that the place in which you were born, your place of origin, definitely holds a special place in your heart always. And so this particular story was a little bit of a three-party love story between the natural world and, in the book, Henry and Rose. And so it felt like my ode to the Northwest because I think the environment does play a is almost like another character in the book. And so growing up, my mom put me into the junior naturalist group. I wasn't a Cub Scout or anything like that, but I would do junior naturalist groups, and we would go out and watch salmon spawn and learn about bird migration and the intertidal life. And it was a formative time that really stuck with me, and I still find a lot of my comfort and love in the natural world.
Yeah, I heartfully agree with you. And I was born in Washington State. My father was in the Air Force, so I was born on McChord Air Force Base. And then I was lucky enough to go back to Washington, both as an adolescent and an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And I always like to say that the Pacific Northwest, if you want to know what the color green smells like, that's where you need to go.
Yeah, that's a good way to say that, for sure.
And especially like the Olympic Peninsula and, the lushness of those thick, amazing old growth forests. It's just so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so did your mother turn you on to the poetry that you enjoy as well?
We listened to Prairie Home Companion a lot when I was growing up, and that was my parents' way of spending the Saturday or Sunday morning. And for those of you who don't know, Prairie Home Companion was a storytelling show, and they would feature poems in the small town called Lake Wobegon and singing, and they'd have special guests come on the show. And I just loved it and developed my interest in storytelling and also music and poetry, in part because of that show. And, we didn't have evenings where we would sit around reading poetry as a family. So it wasn't necessarily because of family exposure. It was more that particular show. And then also I would write songs and poems in high school. It's just kind of how I expressed myself. And I think when you're looking for where your special place is in the world and you start to get feedback that this is something that is meaningful to other people, you kind of lean into that. And so I think that in high school and actually no, junior high, I would write these poems and these songs, and they just kind of appeared, and then I just kept doing it.
Right, and you're still doing it. And it seems to me that when you're filming and you're doing I want to call it a performance, Grant, because it's a storytelling performance after all. It is. It seems like you're spontaneously making up lyrics. But now I'm starting to wonder if you premeditated writing these things.
No, it is really, I did a lot of improv in college. And
good.
There's, one thing that I really love about doing the show is connecting with people who are on the Instagram in the community, and I'll ask them what's happening in their life, and I might sing about what's actually happening in their life. Or if I'm telling a story, I usually have my guitar with me when I'm telling a story, and there may be a moment that's in the story that I thought about before, or that just kind of happened organically that I feel like could use a little call out in some way. And so I'll kind of sing through that.
Right.
But it's pretty organic in the moment. I will spend time writing the post office posts, which are things that happen in my community, the fictitious world of Alder Island, which sits just north of California and just south of Canada. You won't find it on a map. it's stuck right between two counties, and they decided just to not put it on the map. It was easier. And
Exactly.
I will
So good.
I'll just find little moments that I think could be helped by a song. So very rarely are they scripted out. I might have bulleted points, but that's something I had always done, even in junior high and high school and college, is made music through improvisation. I don't know why my brain works that way. It just in song I can find rhymes easily. I don't even think about it; it just kind of appears.
I love it.
And so I've kind of incorporated that into the storytelling of the show.
I mean, I guess throughout your whole life, you've just kind of been really into rhyming schemes, and you are a musician who plays a guitar, and I just love that you're spontaneous about that stuff, Grant, and it really does show through in your social media feed. And I wanted to go back though to your studies. Not that I care about matriculation and think that everyone should go to college by any means, but you did, and you came into the world as a creative professional, and in fact did work for Nike in some capacity, and then independent contractor for your own creative agency. And so, can you tell me a little bit about that? How that spontaneity and that playfulness kind of helped you through your professional career and kind of a grown-up job.
Yeah. So college, I had a incredibly advanced degree. It was a 6.5 year general studies program, which basically means they wanted me to get out. I had like 8 minors, and I was curious about a lot of different things, which is kind of a theme. And
Yes, it is.
and so the school was like, "Oh my God, we got to get this kid out of here." And so they gave me this general studies major, which was basically a bunch of minors. And so I wouldn't say that was a direct route into the creative business that I'm in now. I think a lot of people have pretty circuitous routes unless you went, directly to film school or something like that, or communications.
Certainly.
But yeah, I knew that I wanted to be telling stories, and also knew that I wanted to be able to pay my rent. And I had some Nike connections, and I got a job there, which was a horrible job for me. For someone, it would have been an amazing job, but it was called Global Footwear Merchandise Operations, and it was creating these orbiting calendars around different product dates. And I was able to hang on just long enough to get over into brand. And like any big organization, if you can just network your way around, you can eventually kind of end up closer to where you want to be. And so I started creating video content for the brand group at Nike, and then started my own company because I realized I could do better and work with multiple groups within Nike instead of just one if I had my own company.
I see. Okay.
And so I started creating content for meetings that they would have. It's a storytelling company. That's one thing that's really great about Nike is they know how to tell a good story, and it's a great place to cut your teeth for storytelling. And even the meetings that they would have, internal meetings around sales or the direction the product was going to go in, they would have to have some type of visual component to really relay that messaging about what unleashed power means, or what better, faster, stronger means. And so those concepts I would take and then build into videos to help illustrate to whomever was watching what that concept really embodied. And then I started working with Intel, because in Portland, where I live, that's the other big player in town. And that's what I do at this point. It's not just internal content. We'll create let's see, I'm trying to think of a good example. We just did one for Intel called She Owns It, which features female business owners around the country who are using technology in remote locations to develop their business. And so, we'll fly to Montana or Wyoming or Idaho or wherever to remote locations and interview and tell stories about people who are using this technology to interact with the world in a way that's, allows them to live their life in these small communities. So yeah, that's kind of the work that I do. And it is, I think, in connecting with people, it is playful, it is spontaneous. The trick with branded work is that you have to kind of bring yourself into a pitch. You might pitch 3 different ideas for what the client's looking for. And you also have to be totally willing to change all of that to meet what the client is actually trying to do. And the client might say something like, we want to do something totally different, which is not really true. They want to do something a little bit different. And so that may be inspired by your totally different idea. But I think anytime you're working with a big organization like that, people want to take some risk, but not a crazy amount of risk, because it may mean that they lose their job or it may take the brand down a different track. So that's something I've had to learn how to do, is to share kind of wild and crazy ideas, but be able to have the humility to just use a little bit of that idea along with exactly what the client really wants to do. And so,
right. I think that's a mark of a good writer, though. I think that as I've gotten older, I realized too, all the marketing writing I've done and bid packages for construction and architecture, and oh my God, the things I've written at a corporate level have fed me in some way. And I think, you're talking about for sure the specificity of what a brand expects of itself. And they want to stand out by being creative, but they still have to address their bottom line by being who they are. Mm-hmm. And then so as a writer who's trying to lend a little bit of creativity to that, boy, man, you got to compromise is a big fat word.
Yeah. Yes. Compromise, and also just take what the client is saying and reflect it back in a different way that also allows them to see themselves in the final product. Because, the best way to get buy-in from somebody is for them to see themselves in what you're selling them. And so it's a little bit of an art that I think I've had to learn, which is taking what the brand wants, taking what the client wants, and just adding a little bit of yourself and creating something different.
Yeah, and please explain to me how you regard your practice of being a good listener, because I don't believe that you can be a good writer or a creative who's trying to collaborate with others and be a voice for others unless you're a really good listener. And to me, that means that you're sitting at a table and you're not waiting for a chance to say something. You're just absorbing what's going on around you, and then you do get a chance. And you're able to, like you say, be a mirror, because you have absorbed the information properly. Like I
think more than anything, people love to be listened to.
Yes.
And that's like 90% of the job is just creating an environment where people feel heard, and then reflecting back a lot of what they've said, so they feel like they've been heard, and then just adding just a little bit of your own dust to it.
Right.
Those are the projects that move the smoothest, are the ones that incorporate what the people with the vested interest are saying. And you can come in with your own set of ideas, but it doesn't it's hard to move a project forward unless most of the idea is what you heard around that table.
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. But then you have to regurgitate it in a way where it sounds fresh and they knew that they were listened to. And your job as a creative is actually kind of showcased, because you're like, hey, you said this, but here's what I heard.
Right. I love this. concept. Let's look at doing exactly what you're saying, but just a little
But
bit.
right,
Yeah.
the
Instead of
polish. Yeah,
instead of saying it with a instead of saying it with the speed of an airplane, let's say it with with the speed of an imagination. Like there's funny ways of.
yeah. Add some grace.
Yeah, and you're not trying to manipulate. I think you're just uniquely. I mean, you really
No.
are trying to
Yeah.
capture what they're trying to say in a way that's different and unique.
Okay.
So anyway, it's fun work, but I really do love. Um, I feel like we kind of have these safer professions that are ideally just slightly adjacent to what we want to be doing,
Yes.
or our art. And I've managed to have work that's really close to what I would do if I didn't have to do anything, which is
Right.
like writing books or doing the show or writing poems, whatever it may be. So it's real close.
Right. And so when did you start conceiving of Kingfisher Lane? When did that idea start to germinate?
Well, I'd written another book before that I didn't feel that I was prepared for. It spun off into a bunch of different directions. I had characters that were in France and Alaska, and it felt like a lot for a first time novelist to try to take on. And so during the pandemic, I retooled my idea of what my first book would be and wrote this book, which is a pretty it's similar to Bridges of Madison County. There's two main characters, three if you consider the Pacific Northwest as a character. Romance or love stories are fun in that way. You really get to dig into two characters and their relationship. And I'm a romantic person, and I wanted to have an expression of that energy. And so this provided that.
Yeah, and I love the setup. I love the present day of how rich their lives are in certain ways, but they live in a sentimental space that is based on total separation.
Right. Right.
And
Exactly.
yeah, and I felt completely taken by the feeling of that sentimentality. It's easy from my perspective for the reader to say, sometimes it's okay to remember that kind of stuff. I mean, we've all had dalliances in the past that, lifted us at the time, and you go on with your life. And there's no reason for you to remember that stuff because you've got all kinds of other shit to focus on. So
Totally.
I
Yeah.
love the reminder of your writing is that, hey, maybe you should do a little treasure hunt and some mining of your own memory and dig and see what you can bring into your present that will kind of give you a moment of pleasure to reflect on.
Absolutely. And that's okay. Just finding your moments of pleasure. It's important.
It is important. And I think, so Advanced Pretend, our tagline is the creative adult is the child who survived. And it sounds to me like no matter what you're doing, you're channeling your creativity in the things that you've always found beloved.
Yeah. And I think a good example of that, as I was thinking about this recently, is when you say the things that you always found beloved. When I was little in Eugene, the story goes, for my mom, we had this piano, and I'd always run down after my showers, completely naked, go to the piano, sit there, and make up songs when I was just a little kid. And I didn't, there was no thought behind it. It was just what I enjoyed doing. And I think that we can all reflect back to ourselves in those early years and see what was there and what we were into, because we're not that much different. We have all these different experiences now, but I think that the really strong programming kind of just was there. And it's fun to reflect back and see that you were who you are in a lot of ways.
You were who you are. Oh, what a great thing to say. And so I read something from your book, and I do love to read quotes to some of the guests just to get their take. And I've got this thing from Carl Sagan for you specifically. It's a little long, audience. And there's no Sally selling seashells by the seashore in this one. So you go talk to kindergartners or first grade kids, you find a class full of science enthusiasts. They ask deep questions. They ask, what is a dream? Why do we have toes? Why is the moon round? What is the birthday of the world? Why is grass green? These are profound, important questions. They just bubble right out of them. And then you go talk to 12th graders. And there's none of that. They've become incurious. Something terrible has happened between kindergarten and the 12th grade. So, yeah. I mean, I think that the world, it will start imposing itself on you early. And there's peer pressure, and there's societal constraint. And there's people that care about you that want to protect you from your dreams. Mm-hmm. And, I like to say, too, that as a creative adult, I found it so valuable to surround myself with people that friend family and family members and other creatives and collaboratives that are there to remind me that I'm doing the right thing by following my intuition and my gut concerning my own creativity. And it's really important to have people in your life and to choose wisely. Partnerships, friendships, where you don't have cynics that are saying, what's the good, what's that good for? Or you seem to be spending a lot of time on that. How are you reaping some kind of financial reward? And what's your take on that, Grant? I mean, you clearly have, you're living a rich creative life, both professionally and personally, with a decision to write. And I want to tell the audience too, apparently this Kingfisher Lane is a series. This is just the beginning.
Yeah, there's 3 books. They all take place on Alder Island. The show that I'm doing is originally was located somewhere else, but now it's on Alder Island. So if you want to learn more about it, you can watch this show that I do on Instagram, and you can learn about the characters that are in the book and the characters that will be in the next book. And the next book's a love story as well, with that features 2 different characters, but it happens in the same environment, so the same world. But I think that my take on surrounding yourself with people who support your creative pursuit.
I mean, I don't necessarily think it's about validation, but at the same time, I think creatives need validation from people they trust in some ways. But at the same time, you don't want people discouraging you and saying, how are you monetizing this Instagram thing, Grant?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think you kind of need both to a certain extent.
That's true.
Because, I feel it's such an exhale and such a comfort when you do find a fellow creative who encourages you, someone that you can feel seen by, and especially if you are surrounded with more practically minded people, perhaps it's really nice when you can be intentional about finding a community of people who support the way that you are built.
Yeah.
But I do think that having a critical voice, or having someone who asks those questions about how can you scale it, can you monetize it, can you those type of questions are good to think about depending on what you're wanting to do. And if the answer is no, that's okay. And you realize that you're just doing it for the pure creative pleasure of it.
Right.
And that's also liberating to know that, okay, I'm not going to figure out how to sell sea glass by the seashore. I just am not. I love doing it, but Sally already has the market cornered. She's got this great internet site. And then but you're like, I love doing it. I love doing it so much that I'm going to do it no matter anyway. And so, which is a really nice response when someone's like, well, can you monetize this? Like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Like, I just love the way that I feel when I'm doing this. I love that it's my way of providing a little bit of an escape to the world. And so
that's lovely.
Yeah, I think that the critical voice can be helpful, but it is a balance, because you don't want to just be surrounded by those voices. It would be a little lonely feeling.
Yeah, and I really honestly believe that as a creative myself, and having talked to so many artists in my work as a writer, you are your own worst critic. I mean, I think every human being is their own worst critic, and to try and shut down that inner voice that's trying to tell you you're wasting your time, that's difficult enough as it is. And so to have also, external things that are saying negative stuff to you too, it's just, you have to make really good decisions about what you allow yourself to focus on and dwell on, and being able to let go, and saying to yourself, I should create for the sake of creating. There's nothing wrong with that. And, the reward is the act itself.
Absolutely. And just the celebration of humanness, being able to do something that is uniquely you is a pretty cool gift.
Yeah, our humanity is so easily seen in our creativity, and I think that is the gift. I'm going to ask Matt to jump in here. He likes to come in toward the end of the conversation. I'm sure he's been taking notes furiously.
Has he just been there shaking his head? He's just
right. He cuts out his video so we can't see him.
Right, exactly.
Rolling his eyes.
Right, exactly.
Why?
Not another one of these guys.
I want to ask you super quick while Matt's coming on. Why did you choose the modern romance genre to publish?
I mean, I think I am a romantic, and there's not a lot of men in that space, and it didn't feel like a choice, really. I didn't feel like I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll write more just a traditional fiction. Maybe I'll write a mystery or a sci-fi book. I just wrote what I wanted to write, and it happens to be romantic fiction. And that's just what I plan to keep writing. It's not a strategic decision, that's for sure. But there are some benefits, which are, there aren't many men in this space, and so it's nice to kind of say, hey, you can be a romantic and be a guy, and you can represent a feminine voice as well as have a masculine strength. Like it's something that's taken me a while to feel comfortable with, but I think it's an important voice to have out there.
Isn't it so cool though that you can age and still like uncover layers of yourself? Like you're this continuing excavation of ourselves, dig a little deeper, stay curious, even about yourself.
Right. Totally. Yeah. It is. I like that. That. It never gets old being a person.
Right. If you don't let it get old. I mean, if you realize that you still have more to learn, and that staying curious will take you, so far. And I think existing with the knowledge that there's still wonder in the world, which is kind of also drilled out of us so easily sometimes. And just be able to go out there and take that deep breath, and we're sharing the same breath in so many ways,
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah. I want you to buy Grant's book. I'm going to plug Grant right now. So I actually bought it digitally on Amazon, and you can get it in print. And then in places around the Pacific Northwest, I understand that you can get it in certain bookstores signed.
Yes, you should go to Vashon Island, and you can find it at their bookstore. You could go to Cannon Beach, Oregon, and find it in their little bookstore there, and Manzanita, Oregon. And those are the best places to get a book like that. And then just spend time on the beach. It's a 42,000 word book, which basically is just a novel, which is perfect for a 2 or 3 day experience at the beach.
Yeah, I would say. And when was I reading it? I was I went for a hike and I dropped my tailgate and I took out my phone and I sat on my tailgate and read your book in the woods.
Perfect.
Best place to do it. Yeah. And, I also have a copy of Mary Oliver's, oh, Christ, I can't remember it, but it is essays and poetry. And it is all, yeah. I can see the cover in my mind. At any rate, this has been so wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit, and that feels good. Thank you.
It's really nice. And again, check out Grant's feed, look for the book, and can you guys follow us on Spotify? We're looking for like 50 followers so we can monetize the podcast.
That's it.
When I don't want to talk about monetizing my creativity, actually, we need ads. I'm just going to say it. And so you can find the podcast anywhere you guys like to download your stuff, but for sure on Spotify. We would love some more followers. All right, anyway.
Nice.
Great. And thanks again.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Grant.
Have a great vacation. Cheers.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Advanced Pretend is a podcast produced by 9 Stories Creative Podcast Studios, created by Jenn Ryan, executive produced and edited by Matt Jackson. Find us wherever you get your podcasts.